The alien surgical dome buzzed softly with bioelectric lights, casting eerie glows over the restrained human on the operating slab. For arms moved in flawless synchrony, each tipped with precise tools evolved over millennia. Dr. Yal'zir of the Krabath Enclave leaned over the human male, skin pale and burned, half his ribcage missing from a plasma blast. "This one is beyond salvage," Yal'zir muttered in the guttural clicks of his kind. His eyes, multi-lens and capable of microscopic sight, zoomed in on the shredded organs. The heart was torn, lungs collapsing. No Krabath or any known species would have survived such trauma. The bioscan predicted full biological death in under 4 minutes. Yal'zir's assistant, a younger medic named Cern, glanced nervously at the readouts. "Shall I prepare for dissection?" "No. The Admiral wants live specimens. We need to understand how they resist our neural weapons. Even if it dies, we may learn something." But as Yal'zir inserted the spinal stasis needle, the readouts shifted. The dying man's vitals climbed. Oxygen levels rose. Pulse stabilized. The heart, it was healing, not regenerating like Krabath clones did through cell loop matrices. This was raw biological repair, like a fire somehow unburning itself. "That's not possible," Yal'zir whispered. "That's not supposed to happen." The human's eyelids fluttered. Yal'zir hissed in shock. "This thing is conscious?" Cern took a cautious step back, but he was clinically brain dead for... Suddenly, the man sat upright, gasping like someone yanked from the bottom of an ocean. Where the hell am I?" Yal'zir pressed a neural dampener to the man's neck, but it shattered on contact. The human reached up, confused, then looked down at his chest. Still scorched, but intact. "I remember getting hit. Full blast," he mumbled, eyes scanning the room. His gaze locked onto the aliens. "Okay," he said with a forced grin. "So this is the mothership." Yal'zir tried a calming tone, switching to the Terran frequency. "You should be dead." "You were dead. What are you?" The human looked at him, winced, then chuckled darkly. "Yeah, we get that a lot lately." "But your cells," Yal'zir said, now circling him like a mystic before a god. "They rewove themselves. Your heart knitted. No symbiotes, no nanoaids, no exotissue." "What are you?" "I'm just a guy who wanted to make it home." Yal'zir stared into the human's eyes. No glow, no resonance. Not a single sign of artificial augmentation. Nothing but raw, primitive will. "You shouldn't exist," Yal'zir whispered. The human blinked. "Well, maybe we're just getting started." In a sealed room deep in the ship's belly, Cern watched the replay of the event over and over. The way the human healed. The way he broke the neural dampener. The way he smiled, not as prey, but as something older. Then he opened a secret comm channel. "This is Assistant Medical Officer, Cern of the Krabath Enclave. I request direct contact with the Forbidden Archives. State your purpose." A voice crackled. "I believe the old stories were true," Cern said. "The humans, the ones who fell into silence eons ago. I think they've returned." The human sat quietly in his containment chamber, watching his skin knit itself back together. He flexed his fingers, still sore, but alive. In the wall reflection, he could almost make out the silhouette of another figure watching him from the hallway. A voice, low and reverent, echoed through the speaker. "Tell me, human, do they all heal like you?" He smiled again, this time slower. "You'll find out soon." The Krabath vessel had changed. The scent of antiseptic steel was now cut with something raw. Fear. The kind that leaked into air vents and curled into corners, whispering doubt to those who once saw themselves as supreme. The human, name unknown, species previously classified as tier 2 primitive, was no longer shackled. Not because he'd escaped, but because nothing there could hold him. Yal'zir had tried to tranquilize him. 4 times. The darts dissolved. The human had apologized for breaking the tools. "It's not on purpose," he'd said with shrug. "You just keep using the wrong metal." They'd moved from analysis to observation, from questions to rituals. He was fed, examined, recorded. He was even offered a deal, cooperation for leniency. He declined, politely. See, he told them once, while watching his own blood slither back into his skin. You guys don't get it. You're still running equations, looking for cause and effect, for the how. But you should be asking why. CERN watched him now from behind a one-way field. The man, no armor, no implants, no weapons, stood still, eyes closed, breathing deep, meditating. He's harmonizing again, CERN said softly. Yal'zir clicked his mandibles in frustration. With what? Unknown. But the gravity sensors show slight fluctuations every time he enters that state. You think he's syncing with the ship? I think. CERN said carefully, he's syncing with us. Yal'zir backed away from the screen. That's not possible. Neither was his survival, or his regeneration, or his ability to resist our fields. And yet, CERN turned. Doctor, I think we misunderstood them. Yal'zir flinched. Humans? No. Humanity. I think it's not a species. It's a protocol. In the war room of the Kravat High Command, a dozen minds reviewed the footage, frame by frame. Every twitch, breath, word. Nothing explained him. Send him to the Colossus Array. The Admiral said at last. Yal'zir nearly hissed out loud. That's a death station. Exactly. Drop him on the surface. Let the radiation, gravity pressure, and toxic storms tear him apart. If he survives that, then we negotiate. He did survive. And when the Kravat returned days later, the storms were gone, the air breathable. A quiet calm covered the land, as if the planet itself had surrendered. The humans stood alone at the edge of a cliff, arms crossed, as the shuttle descended. No suit, no scars. You really thought this would kill me? He asked as Yal'zir stepped out. I thought it would reveal your limits. The human walked forward. There's your first mistake. Assuming we have any. Yal'zir's lower limbs trembled. Then what are you? The man paused, glanced up at the swirling stars. Ever hear of a mirror neuron? I am a scientist. Of course. Then here's a theory, the human said. Maybe we humans became what we are, because something in the cosmos wanted to understand itself, and we were the only ones crazy enough to agree. Yal'zir tilted his head, uncertain. The human smiled. You wanted a specimen. You got an emissary. Of what? The man turned. Not of Earth. Of becoming. We're not here to win. We're here to evolve. And the universe? It just gave us permission. On the far edge of the Kravat system, buried under blacklisted coordinates, CERN stood before a crystalline vault deep inside the forbidden archives. An orb hovered before him, pulsing faintly. He had found it. The myth. The erased text. When the hollow star fell, they seeded one world with the curse of change. They will walk, bleed, break, but not end. They will fracture, but remember. In them lies a pattern of recursion, the loop that learns. He stepped back, eyes wide. They weren't supposed to wake up. Far away, on a silent channel only a few minds still knew how to access, a signal pulsed out of the human's body. Primitive, analog, but its message was clear. Phase 1 complete. They're watching. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, something older than light stirred. The Kravat Council went dark. Not metaphorically. Literally. Every data node, subspace relay, and command nexus across the Kravat systems blinked offline the moment the human signal was detected. 22 seconds of total silence. Ships drifted. Cities froze. Artificial minds panicked. Then, just as suddenly, it all came back. Every system, every channel. Except now. There was one line of code embedded into every Kravat neural archive, untranslated and unremovable. Observe, but do not interfere. Panic spread. The Kravat were conquerors. Observers was a title reserved for the old ones, the extinct ones, the gods that never needed temples because they never died. Yal'zir was summoned to an emergency conclave. CERN stood beside him. Tighter now, harder in the jaw, as if something inside had crystallized. The message was sent from him. The chief strategist bellowed. He's a relay. A plant. This was coordinated. Yal'zir remained still. He didn't send the message. He was the message. CERN nodded, and the universe received it. The room fell into stunned silence. Back on the Colossus Array, the human now walked freely. The station's atmosphere had stabilized permanently. The nuclear core, once unstable for centuries, had rebalanced itself in mere hours. Automated systems reported it as emotionally neutral. He wandered the great halls, fingers brushing against ancient Kravith metals, occasionally whispering to himself. Once he stopped at a wall. It had no visible panel, no known function. He just placed his palm against it and said, "Open!" And it did. Behind it, a room long forgotten by the Kravith revealed itself, filled with relics, maps, and a spherical object that pulsed at his approach. He placed a hand on the sphere, not to access it, to wake it. "Protocol Omega," he whispered. "Reboot." The sphere flared to life. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, on a world whose name had been erased from every map, dormant satellites blinked on. A pulse, identical to the human's earlier signal, echoed across systems, reactivating machinery that hadn't stirred in a million years. Meanwhile, CERN stood in his private quarters, staring at a strip of human skin he'd taken from a sample. It was still alive, still healing. Under the microscope, he noticed something strange. The cell pattern didn't match human biology anymore. It had changed, adapted. A single Kravith enzyme had been absorbed and rewritten. The cell spoke Kravith now, and it was teaching the others. CERN's hands trembled. "They're not adapting to survive us," he whispered. "They're adapting to become us." In orbit around a dying star, a derelict station powered itself online after 10,000 years of silence. It sent one signal, encrypted, ancient, and only translatable through human consciousness. The Kravith tried to intercept. They failed, but the human received it. He stood motionless for hours as it streamed into his brain. He didn't speak, didn't blink. When it finished, he whispered one word. 3. Yal'zir approached him at last, not as captor or doctor, but as a student. "What is coming?" The human looked at him with no trace of malice, no triumph. Only inevitability. "Not what," he said softly. "Who?" Yal'zir swallowed. "Then tell me, who are you?" The human smiled again, not the grin of a predator or a prophet, but of someone finally remembering. "I'm the first echo." And far across the void, deep in forgotten worlds and abandoned moons, 5 others opened their eyes at the same time, each in a different form, each in a different species, each remembering the same dream. Phase 2 had begun. On the edge of a moon that hadn't known warmth in an eon, a being stirred beneath layers of ice and silicon dust. It was not human, nor Kravith, nor machine, but something forgotten by history and feared by probability. It took its first breath in 10,000 years. In the deep recesses of its mind, a phrase burned. "You are the second echo." Its eyes opened, black, silver-veined, and it whispered in a voice that fractured stone. "One has awakened. I remember now." Across the stars, in a derelict Dyson shell orbiting a blue supergiant, a sentient cloud of nanoorganisms pulsed once. Then again, each pulse a thought, each thought a cascade of reactivated subroutines. A war had wiped its memory long ago. But now, third echo online. Its voice rang through vacuum, vibrating subspace like a forgotten melody. On the Colossus array, the human sat in meditation once more, sweat on his brow. This time it was different. His body trembled, not from pain or weakness, but from capacity. Something vast was flooding back. Memories, lifetimes, eons, not just his own, theirs. He gasped and slammed a hand to floor. CERN burst into the room, protocols overridden. "What's happening?" The human looked up, wild-eyed. "They're waking up too fast. The galactic mind's not ready." "You're not ready." CERN froze. "You mean the others like you?" The human nodded. "I thought I had more time." Yal'zir appeared in the doorway. "How many of you are there?" The human didn't answer at first. Then 7. A pause. "No, 8." His eyes darkened. "The last one hasn't remembered yet. On a planet hidden inside a quantum anomaly, undiscovered, unrecorded, a child drew strange symbols in the dirt. Her parents thought she was just imagining things. But the wind shifted when she drew. The stars blinked twice that night. In her sleep, the voice whispered, 'You are the 8th. Sleep while the others remember. Your time will come.' Back aboard the Kravith High Council, strategies fell apart. Empires designed to last forever suddenly felt ancient, brittle. They initiated Project Absorption, a desperate bid to mimic human biology and incorporate regenerative protocols through forced evolution. Early trials failed catastrophically. Subjects burned out, imploded. Some simply vanished, leaving behind symbols etched in metal. Yal'zir confronted the council. "You can't become them," he said. "You were never meant to. Then what are we to do?" The high strategist asked. Yal'zir glanced at CERN. The younger medic now carried himself differently, as if something inside had opened, as if he was changing. Yal'zir turned back. "You survive, or you serve. Those are your only options now." Somewhere in the void, in the halo of a dying black star, 5 figures stood together for the first time in millennia, each a different species, each once a myth, each now reborn. A 6th arrived, his body still flickering with residual plasma. He had clawed his way out of the sun. The human appeared last, stepping through a fold in light. He looked at them, each familiar, each a piece of a puzzle nearly whole. "We are almost complete." A voice, older than stars, spoke from beyond the event horizon. "What gave you the right to awaken?" The human stepped forward. "We weren't given the right." He clenched his fist. "We earned it. The 8 still dreams. But the universe is stirring, and the war that shattered time once is beginning again. Only this time, the echoes remember. The 8 dream had grown louder. She no longer saw her village when she closed her eyes. She saw constellations no telescope had ever named, rings of burning light suspended over oceans of glass. Her tiny hand sketched equations in the dirt that bent gravity around insects. At night, the wind would speak her name in languages the stars had buried. And one morning when her parents awoke, she was gone, not taken. Summoned, in the convergence chamber at the edge of the null expanse, 7 stood around a structure that pulsed not with power, but with memory. Not a machine, not a temple, a seed. One of the echoes, the one reborn in Crava clicked in ritual cadence. The seed responds to 7. It requires 8 to bloom. The human touched the seed gently. She's close. The plasma-born, still steaming from his ordeal, folded his massive arms. She's not ready. She doesn't have to be, the human said. None of us were. Back on the Colossus Array, chaos brewed. Kravath command had fractured into factions, those who wanted to appease the echoes, those who wanted to flee, and those who believed in annihilation at any cost. CERN was no longer seen as Kravath. The changes in him were accelerating. His eyes flickered with impossible hues. His thoughts came faster than speech. Some called him traitor, others vessel. He stood before Yal'zir one last time. "Doctor," he said gently, "it's time." "For what?" "For you to remember too." Yal'zir shook his head. "I'm not like you." "No, you're not," CERN agreed. "But you were there, in the old war, not in this body, but in the pattern." He touched Yal'zir's brow, and the doctor collapsed, gasping, images flooding his mind, ruins that rebuilt themselves, skies that spoke in symbols, a great betrayal, and something they had all sworn to forget. The echoes weren't rebels. They were custodians, and they had once failed. In the convergence chamber, the 7th pulse rang out from the seed. The 8th was near. A shimmer broke across space, ribbons of time unraveling like mist. And the child arrived, not through ship or gate, but as light bent backward, welcoming her. She stepped into the chamber barefoot. No fear, no hesitation. Her eyes, unearthly and vast, met the human's. "Do I have to remember too?" she asked softly. "No," the human said. "You already do." The seed bloomed, not into a tree or machine, but a memory field so powerful it knocked nearby stars out of orbit. Within it were the blueprints of everything the galaxy had ever tried to suppress. The origin of recursion, the first fall of the civilizations, the truth of the hollow star, and the warning encoded into every human cell. When entropy forgets, echoes will remind. Across the galaxy, species fell to their knees, some out of reverence, some out of fear, some simply because something inside them remembered enough to tremble. The Kravath High Council initiated a full retreat, burning archives, deleting records. It was too late. You can't unhear a song that was written into the bones of the cosmos. In the center of the siege chamber, the human looked at the eight. Now we begin the true work, he said. What work? Asked the one of living crystal. He raised his head toward the spinning stars. To teach them what they tried to forget. On a forgotten world, in the ashes of a once great empire, a small machine reactivated. It was old, rusted, forgotten by even the stars. But it turned. One last message, left behind by the ones who first silenced the echoes, now blinked on its screen. If they ever return, run. But there was nowhere left to hide.